If you thought Ana de Armas couldn't get more attractive, then you were wrong. I know you've probably heard that line multiple times if you've watched any other videos on this, but, I mean, it's kind of true. But she says that you don't need to make James Bond a woman. And this is an article from Variety titled "Don't Make Bond a Woman. Ana de Armas joins Daniel Craig in calling for 007 to remain male." And we'll get down to the comments right away here. They say, "Nearly everyone agreed last fall that Ana de Armas was one of the best parts about No Time to Die, Daniel Craig's final outing as super spy, James Bond. So naturally, the actor is getting asked a lot of questions about who should replace Craig in the next 007 movie. Ana de Armas doesn't have a name, but she does think Bond should remain male. There's no need for a female Bond," de Armas recently told The Sun. "There shouldn't be any need to steal someone else's character, to take over. This is a novel, and it leads into this James Bond world, and this fantasy of that universe where he's at. What I would like is that female roles in the Bond films, even though Bond will continue to be a man, are brought to life in a different way," she added. "That they're given a more substantial part and recognition. That's what I think is more interesting than flipping things." Now, I haven't seen the last James Bond movie, or any James Bond movies, for that matter. And you can yell at me in the comments if you want, but to my understanding, she is a badass, good-looking Bond girl, and she's not even as sexualized as the other Bond girls in movies past. There's no sex or anything. In fact, I think, if I remember correctly, she kind of turns him down. So, I mean, I kind of agree with this, but as long as you don't overshine James Bond. Like, Lashana Lynch's character was more of his counterpart, which he didn't really need in that movie. So I don't want them to do that, necessarily. Yeah, but you can make him badass and sexy, just don't overshadow him. That's really all we need. And it's very refreshing to hear somebody in Hollywood, and especially another woman, say this stuff, because she's exactly right. They're stealing these characters. People were calling for a female James Bond. They can just make another franchise of their own, make a female lead like James Bond, if they want. But instead, they want to take these established characters and turn them into what they want, rather than keep them as they are. And same thing with race swapping, too. Like, let's use Marvel. Marvel has a ton of female characters they could use, but instead they are deciding to gender swap characters and handing off mantles to female characters, when they could just put characters that were originally female in there. But instead they have to demean the men and outshine the men. And they think that you have to knock down the men to lift up a woman. And it's ridiculous. You can be a strong female character without that. And you don't need to gender swap a character to give them validity. They think that female characters only have validity when they're taking over for a man. And that's insane. Like I said, they could have taken a bunch of female characters out of the comics and put them in the movies. And even in the comics, they're doing the same thing. They could just take the original female characters and use those, but instead they're gender swapping because they think that's the only way they can be valid. So to hear this is very refreshing, and like they said in the title, Daniel Craig also said this, a year and a half ago? He said in an interview with the Radio Times, the answer to that is very simple. There should simply be better parts for women and actors of color. Why should a woman play James Bond when there should be a part just as good as James Bond, but for a woman? And you can compare this with Tomb Raider and Uncharted, going into the video game world here. Tomb Raider was first, and that's a badass female character that was done very well. And then there's Uncharted that came in 2007, and I think that might be like around 10 years after the original Tomb Raider came out. I'm not quite sure. But Uncharted is very similar to Tomb Raider, just kind of more narrative focused. Then Tomb Raider kind of shifted gears to focus on that too, but that was more open world. But they're very similar characters in terms of what they're doing. They're both treasure hunters. But Amy Hennig, the creator of Uncharted, decided to make her own thing, and she could have went in there and gender swap, Lara Croft, if she really wanted to. Of course, they would have to hire her first, but somebody could have gone in there and gender swapped Lara Croft, even though we know that would never happen because it only goes one way, really. But instead, Amy Hennig created her own thing, made her own story, and it's great as well. So to keep gender swapping and race swapping all these characters is ridiculous. But let me know what you think about this in the comment section below. Leave a like if you liked it, subscribe if you want to see more, comment, share. I have another channel called The Thoughtful Outlaw Sports where I talk about baseball, basketball, football, and anything else I'm interested in sports related. So check that out if you're interested. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.